Francis Wood is an historian and the former head of the Chinese collection at the British Museum. Francis, welcome. For viewers who might not be familiar with this story and the Yasukuni Shrine, why does it carry such enormous significance after all these years, 81 years?
Because the shrine was built deliberately by the Meiji Emperor towards the end of the 19th century to commemorate military martyrs and those who had served. And it continues to represent as it were, the war memorial of Japan. And the trouble is too that it's visited frequently by military and political leaders.
Is it the underlying dispute? Is it really about the shrine itself, or is it about perhaps a wider perception that Japan has perhaps never fully confronted its wartime past?
I think it's very much that. I mean, the shrine stands, you know, like we have our cenotaph in Whitehall that commemorates those who fell in war. But the Yasukuni Shrine definitely does somehow, it is imbued with militarism, with the idea of Japan as a military force. And it is very provocative because Japan has never really come to terms with what happened in China, particularly in the Second World War. You know, the massacre at Nanjing of 1937, one of the most horrific events of the Second World War, has never really been confronted by the Japanese. And so every time anyone visits the Yasukuni Shrine, to the Chinese, it's a reminder of the Nanjing massacre.
The Japanese might well say, and Japanese politicians in particular might well say, that they're simply paying their respects to those who died for their country in war. Why do China and South Korea reject that?
I think particularly because they feel that the Japanese have never really admitted what happened. I mean, the most terrible atrocities were committed by the Japanese in Korea and China in the Second World War. Massive rapes, murders, terrible tortures of civilians, scientific experiments on prisoners of war and so on. None of this has been acknowledged by the Chinese, by the Japanese. And so the Chinese and the Koreans really feel that it's still an open wound.
This generation is sadly dying off. 80 years on, is it possible that this tension might simply disappear into history?
I think the worrying thing really is that Japan recently has shown signs of being more militaristic. That after the Second World War, I mean, Japan was really kind of rather coerced into being peaceful. I mean, the United States occupied Japan and so on. They were really constrained to follow a fairly pacifist line. But that's definitely going. And so people in Taiwan, in the Philippines, in Korea and in China might well feel that, you know, Japan's military is now a rising threat.
Francis, good to talk to you, and thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. Francis Wood, the historian and former head of the Chinese collection at the British Library.